Welcome back to episode 8 of The Tasting Room. We are now Troy Aikman years old. Number 8.
We are number 8.
Cheers, buddy.
Yeah.
We have a special, we won't say announcement, but the 10th episode will be a unique one that we'll tell you about maybe after episode 9. Maybe at the end of episode 9.
Are we leaving a cliffhanger?
It's a tease.
It's a tease.
Yes.
We've got a fun idea for that episode,
Absolutely.
and it'll be really cool.
And speaking of fun, this week's guest was Noah Bush, one of the owners of Hodges Bend, Lowood, Saturn Room, Open Container at Boxcar. He's involved at Topeka with Chip Gabarino. His name is Noah Bush, and he is a stud. That was a great talk.
How can you fit that much time into?
There's
your
not
day?
that many hours in the day.
No. I'm trying to think about opening up a second tap room, and I'm like,
right.
Lisa's always like, well, how are we going to do that? Do we have enough time for that?
Just make it work. He brought us this beautiful bottle of wine, which has something to do with elephant skulls and cyclops. So we will leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
In a different world and a different terroir.
You want to get right to it?
That's right.
All right. Noah
Thank
Bush
you.
after the break.
Cheers.
Hey, I'm John. I'm one of the partners here at Grassfire Creative. We are a production company. We do animation, video production, live production, anything you need to creatively tell both your story and your business's story. Along with the content that we create, we also provide the strategy behind how to get it in front of the eyeballs that matter to you. We're located right in the middle of the United States in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so no matter where you are, we're just a short flight away. Bottom line is we are very excited to both meet you and tell your business's story. Please do reach out to us one of the ways below via email or phone number, and check out more about us at our website, grassfirecreative.com.
Welcome back to the Tasting Room, everyone. Thank you so much. We've been doing this for 2 months now, and that feels like an accomplishment.
I didn't realize it's been 2 months.
Yeah, it's been 2 months.
Episode 8. So that was my football number growing up. So we'll say lucky number 8.
Right on. Well,
we'll go with that.
Okay, and we're really excited to have Noah Bush here.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah. Man, you've been keeping people within the libations for how many years now?
Oh man, you're gonna make me do that. I don't. It's gonna show my age. I've been bartending. Oh God, since I was. Is the Able Commission gonna hear this?
No, you're good. Since you were 12.
Yeah, I mean, I started bartending when I was 20. I was underage. I was working in a place. It's no longer around, so they're not gonna get in trouble.
Statutes of limitations are way gone.
Yeah, they're way gone. And I am gonna be 39 next week.
Right on.
So
happy early birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's no other place I'd rather be right now.
So for our listeners, you own and run Saturn Room, Hodges, Lowood, and are you involved with the Topeka?
Yeah, I help run those with my partner Chip Gabarino.
Right on.
And then we've got Open Container, the rooftop bar at the Boxyard as well.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that you were involved with
I
that.
actually forgot. You have so many things that I forget some of the things that you have.
I do too sometimes.
Well, there's only so many hours in the day. How do you, this isn't one of we'll have a 6-pack of questions for you at some point, but I'm just curious, there's so many hours in a day. So how do you delineate who gets what? Is it whatever's the hottest fire?
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
At least during the time of COVID.
Fair.
Any plan is provisional, and I set out on my day, and then I get a call, and then my plans are torpedoed.
What you thought you were doing is not what you end up doing. Yeah,
exactly.
I get that. Well, I'll start pouring. We'll start with the bourbon like we normally do. I'm excited for this one. So I'm a big bourbon guy. Obviously, Kentucky Owl is one of my favorite distilleries, and I've never had their, we'll call it adult bottle, because it's about $300, between $250 and $300.
This bottle is?
No, the Kentucky Owl. They're single bourbon, whatever they call it. See, I don't even know. I've never bought it. I don't know what the label says, but I just know it's that expensive.
Fair.
They have this one that came out that's called the Wiseman, and it's a collaboration they did with someone else in Kentucky, and I'm not sure who, and it doesn't say on the bottle. But this one retails for about $50.
Ooh.
and I want your opinions on it. I mean, you're a somm, you have a good palate.
Yes, I guess yes. So it's been said before.
It's been said. We'll get a little more than that. Come on, and you can ask your question
Right on.
while I'm pouring.
So Noah, one of the things that's going through my mind when I was thinking about what kind of questions and what kind of conversation that we're going to have
It's
today.
Houston.
Yeah, nice stiff pour.
Yes.
Cheers.
Was
Cheers.
one, the cool thing is I have never met you, which is really cool. So thank you for being on the podcast. And this is a really fun way to meet someone. But what drew you into owning bars and service industry businesses within the Tulsa area? Because all of your, let's call it bars and coffee joints are, man, you can draw almost a 3-mile circle and you've got basically all of them there. So what drew you into that area? What made you decide this is where we want to be within this community? And man, you've got so many projects. So what drew you into those projects? And
It's like a 5-part question.
sorry.
No,
I-
that's
Dang.
cool.
Yeah, I was thinking
Were you
about
taking notes during that?
Yeah, I'll try and address all of your questions.
and I can remind you too, because I was excited to learn that from you and really kind of dive into your methodology of what your company is accomplishing.
So, so Chip and I met up and opened Hodges together. That was our first project together. He already had the Topeka Hyatt and at the time the Topeka Mayo, and then the Roastery. And then we had met through various friends. Really bonded over our love of coffee and wine and booze. We liked to get drunk together, basically.
Start of every good partnership.
Libations usually do that.
Yeah, exactly. And we decided we both wanted to open up kind of the same concept. I think, to sort of answer your question, why is because I kind of had something to say about the way that people were drinking specifically in this town and eating. We've always had a really good hospitality culture here. But there was some deficiencies, maybe some misfires of a couple of things. And really, at the time, downtown, you had the Topeka Coffees, you had Valkyrie that had been open for like a year, maybe more.
I was going to ask
a little
how close
bit more.
you guys were to the same age.
And then you had Elliot's Concepts. And that was it. I think the reason why I wanted to go to our location. I mean, there was nothing there. There was a couple of fits and starts of some businesses across the street. You had 818 Bar. I don't know if you guys remember that at all.
I don't think I was here when that was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
You're
when that was
in
around.
I don't know if I was young or old enough to be down there in that area.
That was a very short-lived one, and then it was Tiny Lounge, which was one of
Heard of
Elliot's,
Tiny Lounge.
Yep, Elliot's places across the street. But they weren't around. Nothing was in that area. And as somebody who has been in the service industry all over Tulsa, it's weird. There's people expect and act a certain way in different neighborhoods in this town. Mm-hmm. So you've got your Cherry Street vibe, you've got your Brookside vibe, and then you've got your downtown vibe. And right off and to the side, there was this one thing that I could kind of I know it was in a good location, and I knew that, if people come to me, just traveling to that one spot, it's going to get them outside of their box. Mm-hmm. And so I could do what I wanted to do in that place because they're already experiencing something new just by coming to my location. Even though it's not that far off. I mean, I lived in the apartment above for 9 years
That's cool.
before we opened it. And 6 months later, I had to move because it was too loud and I was too attached to the business.
What was it before you opened it?
Oh, man.
When you were living above it?
When I was living above it, it was Spexton Jewelers.
Okay.
Are you familiar with them?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're great guys.
Yeah.
Love them to death. It was really fun living above them and just, it was crazy because Thailand was across the street. There's a lot of shenanigans in that area for a while. Trevor Tack lived up there for a little bit.
I've heard
Oh, that's
stories
cool.
between Jared Jordan, yourself, Tack,
Chris
Winkle,
Dodge lived up
Christina
there.
Dodge. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a little microcosm of like service industry right there in Tulsa.
That's really cool. That little corner of downtown Tulsa is just far enough removed, but also at the same time there. I've always pictured in my mind. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that little area always reminds me of somewhere in Europe, a little bit removed. It has a really cool kind of cozy effect on the mind, being over at Hodges and Bohemia and Lowood and all of that area.
Maybe it's the lights across the street.
I think it's
Totally.
the lights across,
Yeah.
but it's also the brick buildings and the curvatures of the building because it's tapered down at the end of Third
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah.
So it always makes me relaxed when I'm down in.
That's
your place.
interesting.
It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about that.
Yeah.
It's good.
So this isn't, before I actually ask a deeper question, have you noticed a difference? You're talking about the Cherry Street vibe and the Brookside vibe and the downtown vibe. Does East Village now have a vibe? Or do you think it's more of just an extension of the downtown vibe?
I think it is in some ways an extension, but I also, it's an eclectic vibe. We got Bohemian across the street, we got the Goat down the street, and now we got Lowood. And so you get a handful of different people. You got the people that are, coming in that maybe want to party a little bit more, going to the Goat. You've got literally, it's in the name, sort of a more bohemian vibe across the street. Really relaxed. They got a great product. They really know what they're doing.
They make great pizza.
Yes, they do. And then Pat, talk about a legendary bartender in Tulsa running that place. He's been around forever. And then, I think it does kind of have its own vibe, but it's because it's an eclectic mix of all the other areas of town, I guess.
I can see that. What do you guys think of that, by the way?
So from the last time we were drinking bourbon with Katie and this one's like
There's a huge
putting
difference.
off lightning bolts
Yep.
and explosions.
So we had Old Tub last time,
Oh, yeah.
which tastes a lot like Jim Beam. I mean, it's made by Beam. It's,
This
it's not
is-
at the level of Booker's.
This is kind of what I picture
yeah.
if I'm strolling
Yeah,
up
go ahead.
to a saloon in the 1820s and I'm, putting a silver dollar onto the bar and go, bartender, fill up my drink.
Right.
And I've got
That's
my
what you're
Spurs
getting,
on
yeah.
and my hat and my Stetson and a 6-shooter at my side. This is what I think.
They just set the full bottle down.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah,
little
they-
shot glass, and then they go
exactly.
back to polishing their
I
glass.
want that. So
Yep.
can we start doing that at Hodges?
I know.
Western night.
Legally, I don't know if
You
that's
just
allowed.
charge you for whatever you poured yourself. Yeah, I don't think I can do that.
Just with a notepad, and we just keep notes of how much we've had to drink.
No,
Yeah,
this is
inventory would be totally in
It would be
control.
tough. What's your sommelier palate tell you on this? What do you think?
I think it's fantastic. There's some nice spice. Definitely getting a cooling on my lips from the alcohol. It's a really well distilled product. I think it's fantastic.
Good.
I'm sounding a little nerdy here.
No,
No,
we're
no,
going
this
to
is
get more
exactly
into that
what-
when we start talking about the wine that you brought and all
It's-
that.
I like how berry forward it is.
Yeah, lot of fruit. And I get stone fruit on the
Yeah.
nose a lot, like apricot and peach.
Peach.
All right, we're going to talk more about because I'm going to pick a sommelier's brain whenever we get to the wine because
Okay.
there's things that I'm just going to save it for that. One thing I want to know: we both like to travel. You travel to places I wish I've gone. I respect that, whether it's Spain or wherever you've been recently. How much of traveling for you is a creative spark for what you do back here at your own places?
Oh man, good question. It has a lot to do with it.
Because Torero, I'm assuming, came from your love from that kind of food as well, which I
Sure.
miss to this day.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate that we couldn't get enough people behind that
Yeah.
project. But you never know if there's going to be a little resurrection of Torero.
I hope so. And I hope that's just a little hint that you're dropping, because you got me real excited over here for a second.
But yeah, a lot of it has to do with travel. But I mean, I can't travel all the time, right? I'm running businesses. It was a lot easier whenever I was a bartender, and I could just take off and no responsibilities and go and then come back. Now I have people that depend on me.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I got into the service industry because I didn't want an office job, and now I created an office job for myself.
Right.
Kind of funny how that works. But it's everything. You get inspired just even by going to, like, New Orleans is kind of my travel city. It's such a good food town. I love going there they dive headlong into their concepts. And so if you go down there and you want Spanish tapas, if you want Korean barbecue, like, it's just, some of it's really strange, but it all works. And I think a big part of that is the service culture there. I mean, that's their industry, is service. And so going there, and I mean, I don't think I would be where I am right now if I hadn't been inspired by the type of service that you get just going to a dive bar in New Orleans.
Yeah. That place, man, Tales of the Cocktail and all of that is just
so great. Weren't we down there at the same time one time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous. I've never been able to.
So that's
never
like,
been able to go down there.
I feel like I'm a leech, or just like an attachment to people, because like I bartended in college in Norman, but like I've never owned a restaurant, never owned a bar, never been in the service industry since I've lived here. I've just been lucky enough. My conduit to basically all of my friends in the city was Josh Royal.
Sure.
When I first moved here, I moved to 41st in Peoria. I might have told this story on the podcast before, and it was weeks before he opened our bar. And I just went for a walk and walked in. They weren't open yet. We hit it off, and then so I had to text earlier and ask Jordan to bring in the beer glasses.
Oh,
because I saw you had beer here and no glasses. So thank you, Jordan, for doing that. You can just set them right over here. But yeah, so he was my conduit, and through him, I mean, in some way, shape, or form, twice removed, I met you. I've met everyone that I know in the industry, and so it's weird sometimes for me to think about and to talk about, because I feel like I know a lot about the industry, but I've never actually been in it. So it just feels weird to have this conversation. Be like, yeah, I saw you at Tales of the Cocktail. Like, what the fuck are you doing there, John?
Yeah,
You're not down there to like. I'm like, well, I was down there to drink and to hang out with friends. Like, that's what I was doing. But sometimes it seems weird. Yeah.
No, I don't think it seems weird. I mean, I love that you love the industry as much as you do.
Yeah.
We need more of you, especially after what's gone down in the last 2 years. But can we dive into COVID?
Sure.
I think
that's a scary subject.
Scoot up a little bit so we can make sure
sorry,
keep hearing you.
Sorry,
you're good.
I think one of the things that I'm sort of battling on my end is, I love the service aspect of what I do. I might be an anomaly in that.
Which shows through in your spaces too. Because there's good service at those spaces.
Saying that. Yeah. But I want to find a way we had physical walls up on our bars, right? There was masks. It became, the server versus the customer almost, and now that those physical walls are down, it's starting to come back a little bit more, but I'm trying to get people activated again, engaging their bartenders and their service staff. Yeah. I mean, I think, everybody kind of got used to the way that things were a little bit on the service side. And, I want to bring that hospitality back. And that's just like education and training and making it fun again. Like, I want people to have fun doing what they do again.
And not be scared of coming to work.
Not be scared to come to work.
Or scared to come and have a drink.
Yeah.
From the consumer side. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And also just a little bit of compassion of, on both ends, like, what is your customer going through? How are they affected by all this? And also, try to get some understanding of your bartender. And I mean, I'm sure you deal with that on your side too.
Absolutely.
And it's been rough, but I mean, you see it getting better, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
We've seen a resurgence of people coming back out, people trying to, reconnect with their friends and be around people more and more. But there's still like this essence. I feel like, I'm thankfully not behind our bar anymore that often. But it's kind of like this still, I would say like 10% of the brain saying, is this okay?
Yeah.
And we're trying to have fun, but it's almost like, are we supposed to be doing this? But we want to. Is it okay?
I know.
How is the public going to perceive this?
Exactly.
And I think that's like our hurdle that we're going to have to get through within this next year is it's okay to come out. Mm-hmm. It's okay to connect with your friends in a safe manner and support local businesses like ours and be out and about. I think, the interesting thing is I think that, is it called agoraphobia?
Yeah.
That's like a huge rise right now that is not necessarily expected out of the human race because we are people that naturally for the last 10,000 years want to be around each other.
Yeah.
And then this year was a staunch, like, let's put a stop to that. You're not even allowed to go to your neighbors next door.
It fucked up my head.
Yeah,
to be totally honest. I'm a social person, and it was weird.
Yeah,
it's a weird social experiment that we're going through. Not that, like, obviously COVID's not an experiment, but it's
I still don't think I'm back to like 2019.
No,
mentally, because
no.
like at Oktoberfest.
I
remember thinking, I went corporate night, the one night a year I go, and I don't remember who I said it to. It might have been to Josh or it might have been to someone else that I was with. I said, well, apparently Oktoberfest didn't hear about COVID because it was just like all these people, and it was just like 2019, 18, 17, just shoulder to shoulder, dancing, swapping spit and air, and who knows else.
And they were still throwing the pennies.
Yeah, I was
still throwing the pennies.
Was amazed.
And like, I don't know if we'll ever be back to the, like, I think from here forward, those things will register in a way that it never registered before. Like seeing that sort of stuff, right? Like, I mean, obviously, disease existed and viruses existed and all of that, but the way it affected us, I think now we'll see things forever.
I think people our age will have that effect for maybe the next decade.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, which is wild to think about.
It is. Let me have one more follow-up on the COVID talk. Pick a beer. So from a Psalms palate, do we need to end with wine, or can we go beer, wine, beer?
I'm a professional. It's however you guys want to do it.
All right, so pick a beer. We'll go.
I would say that we need to go beer because we need to cleanse our palate from the whiskey, then go to the wine.
Are you a Cicerone?
No, but I really should. I've been encouraged to get through that program.
Right,
I think that now there's 4 levels of it.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, they've added a level from their level 1, level 2.
Yeah.
And then you would go to level 3, which was master, but they've added a third, I think.
And for those that don't know, that are listening or watching, the Cicerone is basically a psalm of the beer
Exactly.
world, right? Same.
Yeah. Is there a Cicerone in town? In Oklahoma?
There's plenty of like level 1 and level 2 Cicerones in town.
Gotcha.
But we don't have any. I could be speaking incorrectly, but I don't know of anybody
about to get real offended.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know everyone.
Why not?
I wish I did.
Right.
It helped business.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any level 3 or level 4 in Oklahoma.
Gotcha. I've always wanted to do a Psalm Cicerone throwdown.
Oh, that would be so
that
much
would
fun.
be sick.
And have a voting thing where like myself or another Psalm like pairs wines with the dishes, and then you also get a beer paired with it, and then the people there get to vote, and then at the end, it's just
that's
a
great idea.
But I've always wanted to do that. I think that
maybe
would be
like
so much fun.
The money you pay for the plates go to charity or something.
Absolutely,
you can figure out some way
I would
to do
love
that. Yeah.
I'd try to get my Cicerone in lieu of that event.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do that.
Well, get it and let's talk.
All
that
right,
would be so much fun.
That'd be great.
So pick a beer and start pouring. And this question is really for both of you, and it has to do with COVID and what we've seen since then. And it's the uptick in prices.
Oh yeah,
for both the food side. For Eric Marshall talked about it. I don't remember if it was the malts or the hops or whatever he was talking about, but how much the price has spiked there. Have either of you dealt with? Well, let me rephrase that. How have the customers in Tulsa been as far as accepting and being understanding of what you guys are going through and how you have to price things and how those prices may fluctuate and change based on what you're having to pay on the other side?
You know, right now, not getting a whole lot of pushback at all.
Okay.
And
Thanks, man.
for the most part, you know, we've absorbed some of those costs, you know, in the hopes of what, I don't remember what the Fed chair was calling it, like a transitional inflation or whatever the term they're using. Now they backed off of that and it's just pure inflation. But like we were observing it for a little bit just to see what happened, and we were a little bit leery about what people will say. But like as we've ebbed prices up a little bit, we haven't heard anything.
Well, that's good.
And I think it's about like if you're presenting a quality product, nobody's going to get mad about it, right? And I think people are a little bit more forgiving right now. So even if you do mess up, which my places would never mess up,
Right.
they're just a little bit more forgiving right now.
I've to this day, I don't think I've ever messed up yet. So
I don't think I've ever messed up.
I'm a 100%.
Have you raised the prices in your tap room?
So, not in the tap room.
Okay. But in distro?
In distro, we're going to raise our prices for the first time January 1st, which is
That's where it gets
very
hairy,
scary.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's scary
Yeah.
because you know we're already a brewery that, I mean, we're small. We're not a big operation. Beer doesn't necessarily come up from the ground like people think.
I thought it was a beer tree.
I wish.
It's like sap coming out of this IPAs.
Yeah, right. But you know, it's really scary because we have to do it as a business, and we're already a more expensive, you know, beer to purchase than even Marshall, which is right next door. And that's just because they've been around for 9 years. They have everything set up already, and we're having to absorb, you know, setting up a business. We're having to absorb those kinds of costs and buying things at lower levels. And so, you know, our keg prices are probably, goodness, 20% higher than everyone around us. And that's just because we're younger in age. We don't have the buying power of some of the breweries around town, and that's not even counting the breweries outside of state that are regional and bigger and macro and this, that, and the other. So it'll be interesting to see what it goes to. You know, even the restaurants responding to our price increase and this, that, and the other. So it'll be interesting.
Is Saturn somewhat isolated and like insulated from that because there's not a kitchen and it's a little more just on the drink side?
It's more on the drink side. That's been our best business since COVID. You know, rum's cheap, and so you know it's gone up a little bit, but it's been fine. It's insulated.
Good.
I love that bar, by the way.
Thank
I do
you.
too.
Yeah,
I appreciate
It's
it.
so much
Chi-Chi has
fun.
almost been the death of me multiple times. It's
Man, you have two.
you
You're
don't
the
realize. You
Danielson.
don't realize.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, the thing that is
you
like,
did that, didn't you? That was your recipe.
No, it's
Just
actually
did it to mind fuck us all.
it's actually an old Trader Vic's recipe from St. Paul, back when there was a Trader Vic's up there. But people always end there after they've already been drinking, and it doesn't make sense to me because like if I would start there,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then go to my dinner or more drinks or whatever.
Dinner is key after a Chi-Chi.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
need
but
that food.
But people in there, and half the time they're already half cocked, and then
they have a Chi-Chi.
it's over.
Yeah.
And then they blame me for it.
Is that the best? Right. I just did. Is that the best selling drink there? Chi-Chi?
By far.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yes.
Did-
I mean, we've had reps like the makers of the spirits reach out and just be like, "What is going? Why are
What are you
How
guys
are you
doing?"
By the
moving
way,
so much product here?"
For the listeners, what is in a Chi-Chi? Because it is like wonderful,
Divine.
It is.
magical liquid.
It's essentially a vodka pina colada with the addition of macadamia nut liqueur.
And that's why it is so smooth.
It's really good. It's dessert.
I promise I'll let you ask a question and explain this beer, but
Oh,
I'm
no,
curious.
you're good.
Did American Solera have to pay you royalties when they made the Chi Chi Boom Boom
No.
drink? I feel like they
No.
should have because they stole the name and most of the ingredients.
It's a real thing. Like, it's a real drink.
Okay.
Just
All right.
nobody knows about it.
So that's not your name. That's the actual drink.
That's the
name.
actual name of the drink. Yeah, it's.
I'm over here thinking you should have trademarked it and things, but you can't
Yeah,
do that.
no.
Okay.
No, yeah, I tend to go classic cocktails.
That's
whenever
awesome.
I
That's the
do
New
that.
Orleans coming
That's
out
like-
in you.
That's
Yeah,
like
exactly. Well, like, why try and reinvent the wheel? Like, I'll play around and mess around with ingredients and that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's a reason why these drinks have been ordered for generations. You know, so.
And I to your talent and ability to create a drink tastes so great. It like a Ramos Gin Fizz. The two places that I'm ever gonna really order those is Hodges and Valkyrie, because no one really. Nola's does a really good job at a Ramos.
No, it's a
Gin.
good job. You need to go see one of my old bartenders, Scott Graves, who is down at Boston Title and Abstract. And order Ramos Gin Fizz because he is obsessed with those things.
I'm doing it.
He's
I'm
all
doing
about
it.
making those things.
I'll do it.
He is one of the most unique people in the city.
Yeah,
I love Scott
he
Graves.
really is.
I love Scott Graves.
But where I was going with that is like these drinks are something of history, and we've as a culture have drank them for a long time.
Yeah.
But it takes really good talent and someone that really cares about that drink to make it something that an entire city talks about it. Because if you say a Chi-Chi, 99% of people in Tulsa or downtown Tulsa, I would say, think about the Saturn Room.
You can even take that further. When I first went to Saturn and I saw, what was it, a Mai Tai and what was it? It was something that's normally a frozen drink, like you get on the beach that's just garbage, a daiquiri.
Yeah,
Right?
sure. Yeah.
So I saw those on the menu. I was like, this doesn't seem to fit the aesthetic and vibe of this. Like, am I going to get a frozen strawberry daiquiri at this place that also has these like classic cocktails? People don't understand that it's an actual not frozen liquid
The
cocktail.
evolution of tiki is been astounding the last 5 years. But like Hodges opened, and then a year later I was opening up a tiki bar, and the looks on people's faces whenever I said, "Hey, I want to open up a tiki bar," nobody had it before in Tulsa. Nobody had it done well, and they didn't realize how good those and how balanced they can be, because they are used to the all-inclusive resorts where they're just getting a Miami Vice that's just super cloying and disgusting.
Sugar bound.
Yeah, like it's terrible booze. They're putting more sugar in it, and it's all coming out of a plastic bottle. And then they love it there, but they hate it here. And then whenever they actually have the cocktails that are made well, it kind of blows them away. I thought we were going to close the doors in the first. I think it was like the first 6 months.
People just weren't getting it.
They didn't understand it. They would come once and then they wouldn't come back because they looked at it as kind of a novelty a little bit. And then something just clicked and people got it, and we were just crazy busy.
There's something to be said
That's
for the going through that storm, right? Because probably a lot of people would have closed the doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about I don't know if it's courage or what you want to call it, to
I think
to
it's
say
called
like, no,
fortitude.
I think people are going to get this. Like, I think it's, cheers to you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tell us what we're drinking, and I'll let you ask a question. I've been hogging it.
Second drink of the day. This is, and you might thank me, this is a low ABV beer.
This was only 90 proof today.
Congratulations.
Yes. Usually I'm bringing 115 and up.
It's a good palate opener.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this beer is called Bosses Lager, and it is a crystal Weiss within the tap room, and it's tap room only, which is a really, really cool, very rare style of beer to brew. and it came out of one of my brewers' mind and his idea, because he loves Hefeweizens, but he loves Pilsners at the same time. And he didn't really stumble upon this style, but he heard that it was a style, really fell in love with the idea, and then presented it to me. And when he was like, hey, Austin, I think I want to brew a Crystal Weiss, I was like, yes, let's do it. Because not very many people really want to brew this style of beer. It's going to be really crisp. It's really
very
dry.
unique finish.
Yeah, it's going to have everything that Hefeweizen has at the beginning of the drink, all of that banana, a little bit of a heavier mouthfeel, and then when you swallow it, it's all gone. It's crisp, it's dry. And the cool thing about Crystal Weiss, which the crystal part of it comes from it being clear, and in Germany it's filtered. We just we find it in our brewery. And
how did you find it?
So fining goes through. It's called Biofine. It's a silicone protein coagulator. And we shoot
So
got real
it's vegan.
scientific in here.
Yeah.
It's vegan. It's not like fish bladders or something.
No,
like
no.
that.
So it's
or
not
egg whites.
No. So you're talking about isinglass, which is fish bladder, and that's very Irish. And I have still to this day don't know how humans figured out. Oh, let's put fish bladder into beer.
That's a thing?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so like
until
most wine is not vegan. People don't realize that because unless they're using this silicone-based fining agent, like you have to filter out the other biological elements in there, and how you do that is you fine it with either a fish bladder or egg whites, and gets all the other.
So what does that mean? Do you put the wine in a fish bladder, or do you put the fish bladder in wine?
You put the fish bladder in wine,
Or beer, either.
So it's liquefied. The fish bladder is liquefied. It's like,
I was thinking this pouch, and you were pouring things into it or something.
No.
Happening?
So what happens? No. What happens?
This sounds so gross.
with the liquid and finishing it, it's after fermentation. After you're trying to pull out the yeast, you're trying to pull out the proteins and fibers that are still within suspension that make it a beer either hazy or clear. You put that agent in, such as the fish bladder, or what it's called is isinglass, is the actual product. And when you pour it in, or we push it in through a rocket system, and what that's going to do is it's going to go up into the liquid or down into the liquid and react with the protein and pull that protein together to coagulate it and pull it down to the bottom. So, and then that's how you get
crazy.
A clear product. So, and then
How many things have I drank that have had fish bladder in it?
A lot.
90% of the alcohol.
Everyone out there, you're drinking fish bladder.
Up until about 2000.
We might have just hurt your business, Noah.
up until about the 2000s was Biofine actually introduced, and Biofine is the silicone-based version of isinglass.
Gotcha.
And then and it's not like we're drinking silicone; it comes out, and it's also food grade if any of it is left in. But that it falls down when it's falling down through the liquid and coming down. It's forcing those particles of protein and yeast product and like hop compounds in beer. It will actually pull those out and make the beer either clear.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So a little science lessons
something.
for the day. But I'm really proud of my. So his name's Jonathan Trout, and I told him, I'll allow you to do this, but you've got to get the yeast right, because it's so hard to get Crystal Weisses and Hefeweizens right. And he nailed it out of the park. He did his research. Yeah. Really dedicated individual, really hardworking.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Very efficient.
I love Crystal Weiss. That I like a really clean beer, and this is perfect.
Yeah, I think he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
So second question for me, which ties back into your story of New Orleans and how you kind of embodied even within your body language is what I was seeing is people are drawn to New Orleans and places like that, not because it's beautiful. I mean, the French Quarter is cool. It's got old buildings and this, that, and the other.
It has its own form of beauty, right?
Yeah. It's got the ocean and this, that, and the other. You could say the same thing about Tulsa. We've got rivers, we've got hills, we've got trees, nature, this kind of thing. I'm trying to break my mind into how can we, because we've got a lot of really, really talented people, and this is kind of becoming kind of a through question that I've asked, but also at the same time I'm phrasing it differently. How do we break into, in your own words, break into people's minds about Tulsa, and even Tulsans thinking about where we are and as our community, as a food-based service industry, liquid providers within this world, and that people coming from the outside, I think they're learning that we have a lot of really cool talent happening within our space. But how do you think that we're going to get that accomplished and like kind of broadcasted? Broadcasted might be the wrong word.
I think that's a solid word.
Define.
Way to define it. So how do we get, are you trying to just say, how do we promote what we have to Tulsans and to outside of Tulsa?
Well, how do you think that that's going to become a through line for Tulsa? Because I think that that's where we're headed as a town. But what do you think is the defining moment when people go, it's kind of like with Saturn Room where it clicked.
Sure.
I don't know if you could even define that moment. It was just like people didn't come back and then all of a sudden you were busy.
Yeah, they got it.
What's that?
I mean, I'm sure you've traveled to places because that's the reputation they have.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So how does Tulsa then become that?
Oh, man.
Like I don't know if anything's missing, if it's a time thing, if it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I think, aren't we already kind of that in certain circles? I mean, whenever I travel, I'll go to bars and restaurants and wineries and especially like, I don't know if people realize this, but like there's a huge wine culture in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they travel. And they spend money. So, like, if you go to places like Napa and Sonoma, you went to Sonoma. I'm
in Flanagan's Wine Club.
Founders Flanagan. Club. Yeah. And it's crazy. You go out there and you talk to these wineries in Sonoma, and they're like, "Oh, you're from Tulsa. We love Tulsa." Like they understand that there is a huge food and beverage scene here. I was up in Kansas City recently, and like, these bartenders were talking about our places down here and how they wanted to come down just to hang out at our bars, our restaurants, our breweries. So I do think that, I guess in certain circles, the food and beverage scene, I think we already have that reputation.
Within that industry?
Yeah, within the industry, that's my perception, is that we do. We're known. I mean, like...
That's super encouraging.
Saturn Room is mentioned in cocktail books, and so like I do think it's there, and that's part of it, right? Talk to your bartender, talk to your server, see what they like, see where they've been, see where they want to go, as just like a general consumer of things. Exactly what you are, and why I was saying that we needed more of you is the people that are interested in the people that are actually doing things,
right? Mm-hmm.
Like, because they are the tastemakers, right? If I want to know something about a beer, I'm going to come to you. If I want to know something about food or how to cook something, I'm going to talk to my chef. Those are just, that's kind of how it is. I think people need to change their mind. I'm not gonna throw any certain city under the bus. but it was a city that I had a lot to do with, that I used to own a business in, and everybody there was a know-it-all. Every customer coming in didn't have the time to converse with the bartender or the server, and it was a little frustrating to me because I mean, I'm not going to defend myself in court. I'm going to go get a lawyer, right? If I want something to drink, I'm going to go talk to a sommelier or a bartender and ask them what they like and what they want. So I think that's part of it.
That's my favorite way to order and to approach going out to eat and to drink and whatever. And I've heard that it's and obviously if a bartender's busy, I try not to do that because I've heard it's really annoying when someone's like, "Hey man, what do you want?" And you're like, "You tell me, boss, what's good tonight?" But I also I do that when it's slow and I can have a conversation and I'm like, "No, I really want to know where are you at? What's your passion? What are you seeing? What are you making? What are you creating that I'm not going to get the same thing somewhere else because it has your fingerprints on it." Right. But I think there's a time and place for that answer.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Not on a Friday night when the bar's five deep.
Yeah.
But if you are going to do that, just be like, "Hey, I like these things.
Exactly.
Make me something. I don't care.
I do that a lot at Hodges.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Hey, bourbon-based cocktail, go."
Yeah.
Just run.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think in the beer industry, what I've learned is when I go to a new brewery or whatnot, and I walk up to the bar, I just go, "I love beer. What are you excited about this brewery, and what are you drinking right now?" And then they'll have an honest answer right then, and that's when I'm like, "That's what I want."
Well, if you go to a place where somebody is annoyed or doesn't want to answer the question, leave the place because that's their job and they're obviously not good at it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But at the same time, I do have a soft spot for if it's Friday night at 10:30.
Totally.
And it's busy.
100%.
Just fucking pick a drink, man.
Yeah.
And
I get that too.
What do you want?
I mean, if you come up to a bar and you ask that question at 10:30 on a Friday, you're just a dumbass.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Exactly. No, you're 100% right.
Yeah, totally.
I'm smart enough to not do that. But I think also there's a hesitancy to answer it, and you can answer this from a bartender side. Mm-hmm. And I'm honest when I say this. I like all drinks.
Sure.
Beer, it's not the same. There's beers I know that I'm not you've changed my mind a little bit, but normally I'm not a huge Belgian fan.
Sure. Yeah.
There are styles like Chimay does a couple that I like, but you've opened your single and your double that you've brought have been really good. So I might be amending that in my head. But
yeah,
normally I don't like a ton of sours. It's a really seasonal beer for me.
Sure.
It almost has to be on a boat or just a hot day and I can have a sour or two, but then it gives me heartburn because I'm an old man and it's just not, there's things. No. But with cocktails, I'm literally an open book. There's not a liquor I don't like or won't drink. Mezcal, tequila, gin, vodka, whiskey. I mean, you name it. I'll try it. But I think there's a hesitancy from the bartender side. They don't want to make me a drink that they feel like, or anyone, a drink that they feel like they won't like.
Yeah.
And so they almost want you or force you to be like, "No, just tell me what you want." And so it's a weird dance because I'm like, "No."
You're right. That's a good description. It is a dance. If I'm ever met with that, I ask a few questions first. Yep. And if the response still is I drink everything, then I'll just be like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna make some weird shit and put it in front of your face."
But even as we talk about it, I hear how weird and frustrating that can be for a bartender. You hear it and you feel it, right? Because if you're behind the bar, you're like, you're giving me no direction and I have 300 bottles of liquor behind me.
Well,
what?
Yeah,
what am I doing? Right?
Then then you just go to your go-tos, right?
Yeah.
And just throw that out at somebody. I mean, it's.
Basically, let's give the listeners and watchers, viewers, etiquette on how to order.
Know what you like and be able to ready to respond. If you do like everything, tell them what you're in the mood for.
There it is. That's the key.
And learn the lingo a little bit, right? Learn how to describe what you like and what you want. I'm sure there's certain terms that people say when they come in and they start describing beer and what they like, and you're like, "Oh, that's not what you're.
Oh, sure.
That's not what you're talking about."
Yeah,
the word has nothing to do with beer.
Right. But you're not going to tell them that. You're just gonna be like, "Okay, well, here, take this." You know what I mean? And you're going to give them it because you want their money, right? They're willingly giving you money.
But, right. We are in this business to accept money.
Yes.
Although we do love creating stuff.
Exactly.
Have you ever had to throw someone out of your brewery?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever had to throw someone out of Hodges? Personally? Can I get a story from either one of you?
Oh man,
Okay.
Let's drink a little more.
This isn't going to be offensive to anyone.
No names, but just
right.
Yeah.
It was. Oh man. Okay. A guy at this last Oktoberfest that we threw had been hanging around all day. We knew that he had never ordered something from the bar.
I know what guy you're talking about now. And from your anniversary party.
Oh, it was our anniversary party.
But
Sorry,
I know what guy you're talking about. Yeah.
There might have been someone at Oktoberfest that happened the same way. So, yeah, anniversary party. Only drinking water from the bar, this, that, and the other. Subsequently keeps getting more and more drunk. We do not know how this is happening. We've not served him a single thing. We're kind of mad about it because we're like, hey, this is our party. At least buy something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he crosses the line and he's dancing and making a scene. And I'm just like, hey, you want to buy something or get out?
Yeah.
And
Was it the guy that almost took a picture with me?
I didn't see that happen, so I don't know.
Was he the guy walking around taking pictures with everyone? Or am I thinking about a different person?
Okay. Different person.
Okay.
Yeah, different person.
Yeah.
I know that guy. Though.
Okay. What's the funniest one you have?
Oh man.
It doesn't have to be from Hodges.
But
It
he
could be
was
back in the bartending
the
days.
guy that I'm talking about was there for 6 hours at the party
That's incredible.
before I had to throw him out.
He had a flask somewhere or a Camelback.
Yeah.
Yeah, or he'd taken something. It was just hitting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was rolling into it. Man, there was, so this is back White Owl days, and I was bartending with Royal one night. Anyway, there was this guy at the bar, and he had been drinking shots of absinthe all night. Like he would have a beer, and then he would have a shot of absinthe.
That's
Anyway,
a dangerous path.
Yeah.
He's sitting there by himself, right? And he's there for happy hour. He's there for a while. And then he gets up, and he leaves to go eat. He comes back, sits down, has a couple more shots of absinthe, and then leaves. Well, he left his coat there, but we were so busy that like we didn't even realize it. It was one of those nights that was just really packed, and there was just an empty seat with a coat on there. Well, it's the end of the night. We shut down the bar. We're cleaning. The servers are doing their thing. Josh and I are sweeping up the back bar. I think I'm sweeping around the corner around the bar on the other side, and I pick up the jacket, and I said, oh, somebody left their jacket here, and I hand it across the bar to Royal, and he kind of like grabs it, like grab a hamburger or something, and when he does it, he's like, I can see his face, like his eyes light up. He's like, what the hell? I was like, what's going on? It's at that exact moment, there's this banging on the window of our front door, just like banging. This guy's crazy. So our door guy goes over there to figure out what's going on, trying to kick him out. Our door guy just was not a great door guy. Anyway, so long story short, there was a gun in this leather jacket. And it wasn't like
At a bar.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
There was a gun in this leather jacket, and it wasn't like in the pocket. It was like in a secret pocket. And so I immediately, whenever Josh said, there's a gun in here, I immediately like go to the door, and I'm like, dude, you got to get him out of here right now. Like somebody left a gun in here. We're contacting the police right now. So anyway, go outside with the door guy. Door guy's not doing anything. Right, he's just standing there.
Do your job,
this
bro.
drunk guy is wobbling back and forth, trying to fight this guy, and so I kind of go out there and I get in the middle of the door guy and him, and I'm like, dude, you got to get out of here. You got to go call a friend, or I'm going to call the cops. We've already got the cops coming right now because we found what was in your jacket, and like he's so like drunk and incoherent, and And so I just kind of like, I'm holding him like this. Then he tries to like grapple me, and I just kind of like body slam him to the ground and like keep him there. And when I did, I got up. He takes his hands and goes and air shoots me. But like, is that not crazy? Could you imagine
if he would have had his jacket on?
If he would have had his jacket, like he would have literally got out his gun and shot somebody or me because he was that drunk and being stupid and wanted to get back into the bar. Well, long story short, Royal calls his buddy that's a cop. And then like the next day, like they took the guy to jail, to the drunk tank, right? The next day, Royal gets a text or a call from his buddy. The guy was a cop.
What? Oh, wow.
He left his piece in our bar.
He was air shooting you, and he was
air shooting. Like, that is like insane. No. Like I will never forget how scary that is.
That was a great story.
Yeah. That was wild.
Oh my word.
Before I ask my next one, do we want to go beer or wine? What are we thinking?
Let's finish beer. No. Let's go beer because I want to finish there.
Okay. To the dome.
So I'll let you open that as I ask my next one.
Yeah.
So Noah, you mentioned owning an establishment in another city, which we don't have to name the city. Mm-hmm. What? I was going to say something, but I won't. What can you share with our listeners, viewers, us, that you learned the most about the challenges or whatever you want to call it of opening an establishment?
That is a good question.
In a city in which you do not reside.
Okay. Do your research. Not saying that we didn't, but we should have dug a little deeper. Probably should have spent a little bit more time there before we made the decision.
Whose glass was who?
Was that me? That was you.
Yeah. Just kind of living in it, getting a feel for the lay of the land. Mm-hmm. Also, don't stray too far from home.
You went a long ways from home.
Went a long ways from home.
About 10-ish hours from home.
About 10-ish, 11 hours. Yep. 9 hours if you do it right. And yeah, it's difficult. It's hard to keep a handle on things when you're that far away. Luckily, I moved up some really solid people, and if anything, that's one of my biggest regrets.
Is that you let them go do that?
Yeah. I mean, like, in my opinion, some of the best bartenders and service industry people in this town, I moved away. And now I don't know if they'll ever come back.
I can't even argue with that. Yeah,
I know.
They 100% did.
So, mistake. But yeah, I mean, those would be my two.
So then what surprised you Was it the location that you picked wasn't what you thought it was going to be, or was it
the location wasn't what we thought it was going to be? The labor laws changed a lot during construction up there. They did away with tip credit, and which I am all for servers making more money. Like there needed to be a shift in the industry.
What is tip credit? What do you mean by that?
So the way that our industry works is, at least in Oklahoma, is there's a minimum wage for workers, and then there's a tip credit wage. So if you receive tips,
yep. It's like $2.20 to whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And so that tip makes up for the rest of their pay. Gotcha. I don't think people realize that's how the food and beverage industry survives. That's why they can go into a restaurant and buy a cheap burger and have a cheap glass of beer or wine.
Yep.
Right? Because that cost is astronomical, right? And if you take that away, I think it's a good thing, but like everybody has to do it at the same time. Right. And it's got to be reflective. Like people have to understand what's happening. It's got to that knowledge has to filter through to everybody. So like if we did do a minimum wage increase on a federal level and we did away with the tip credit, that would be an ideal way of doing it, because it's if you break it down to percentages, it's just a little bit of a price increase in order to make up that labor cost. But if this person over here has a $10 burger, but I pay more, then I'm going to have a more expensive burger. They could be the exact same product and made the same way, but because I'm paying more, I have to charge more, and that doesn't equate to the average customer's mind.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying it would be something that needs to happen on a mass scale for that to be.
So Minnesota changed their laws as you were.
Where was it again? I couldn't remember where it was.
Wisconsin, Minnesota. Somewhere you said north. Fuck, John.
No, that's
I
okay.
did say Minnesota.
Cat's out of the bag.
Okay.
What was interesting about that is the labor laws changed.
My bad. I wasn't
no.
thinking. I did say it. Yeah.
They changed side to side, right? Yeah. So Minneapolis changed first, and then St. Paul changed, and it was incremental step ups. And so it was this weird exodus that you would see like every 6 months to a year when the prices would go up on one city and then just climb up. Like you'd have this exodus of people going to the other city to get service industry jobs, and then they would go to the next city to get the service industry jobs. So it was like you talk about a transient labor industry, and that was difficult. So
talk about a culture that loves to drink beer, though.
Absolutely.
It gets cold. What else are you going to do?
I know.
Like,
yeah.
I
love it up there.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it up there.
I just love the fact that I happen to have family in Prior Lake, which is just like 25 minutes south of Minneapolis. And so, I mean, it was right around the time you opened. You hadn't been open for long.
No.
I was up there for the Super Bowl when they had the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. It was the Eagles. It was the Philly special game, the Eagles and the Patriots.
Oh, nice.
And so I went with my dad, and my aunt and uncle were in town, and it was fun. But we went to, it was like one of your first couple weekends open. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a picture with Noah up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know, it was like,
nice.
it was cool. Yeah. So it was, sad to see that not work out, but I get it. I mean, it's so far away.
Well, I mean,
and unless you know like McDonald's and whatever, like how to franchise and like it's a well-oiled machine, and it just gets hard.
And so many places are closing up there. I mean, like
I have heard that.
Yeah, it's been difficult for a lot of really, really good places have closed up there. And if you've never been to Minneapolis or St. Paul, talk about a crazy good food scene that's under the radar.
So underrated.
I mean, it's insane. So good. Love it.
I need to get up there.
Yeah.
I've only ever been to Ely, which is on the border.
Yeah. I did have the worst experience with a sandwich I've ever had in my life.
Did it bite back?
In Minneapolis. Oh, I don't remember. I actually don't remember the name of the restaurant, so I can't throw the restaurant under the bus. But I'm one of those where if I see something on the menu and I try not to get the same thing, unless I'm just craving it. Like if I go to a restaurant, I'm going to try something I haven't had before.
Sure.
Whatever. You don't know if you love something unless you try it. They had a shaved cow tongue Reuben on the menu.
Sounds cool.
It did sound cool.
Was it super chewy?
I got the shaving of the tongue that was the top and had multiple taste buds.
So you had taste buds on taste buds.
Yeah. And so I took
You were making out with a sandwich.
Yes. I took a bite of it, and it's this, I can never describe the texture properly of what it felt like in my mouth. But then I opened the sandwich, and it was just like the top layer of a tongue. And I was just like, ouch. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't. It just ruined it for me. I can't go any further with this one. If it had been their bottom layers, it was great. But oh man, it was a lot. What are we drinking? And ask the last question.
So I'll introduce this beer. This is Dryad Dreams, which I secretly
so
think
unique.
that this is one of my wife's best labels, and it's taproom only. It came out so cool. So this is a golden ale. This is actually liquid that I made for our 3rd anniversary. So if you remember back, we had a blueberry and raspberry golden ale that we released for our 3rd anniversary. Well, this is the same liquid, except we put it into a tequila barrel and we aged it.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this aged in a tequila barrel for about 6 months, and then we put it into bottles, and subsequently with beer, you don't necessarily get to tell the story that it wants to tell, or force it. It didn't carbonate until I want to say 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in the bottle for almost 11 months before it carbonated.
Why was it a temperature thing or what?
I have no clue. We tortured this beer. We set it in the warehouse. We got it so hot that it was 110 degrees, and it still didn't carbonate. And then finally, I don't know if like
The time was
the
right.
time was right.
Can't
We're
force
ready.
love, man.
Yeah,
Here we are. We're ready.
and we kept opening up the bottles because we were like, well, we don't want to throw the liquid away. It tastes great. And then
That
magically,
tequila barrel does so much to that flavor.
it's so cool. It's very fruity, yet a little bit tart, and definitely you can taste a little bit of agave in there as well.
It feels more alcoholic than it is.
It's just
if I was to
7%.
guess the ABV, I would say like 10 or 11.
Yeah, totally.
What
That's
is
why
it?
it's 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I just
Yeah.
looked at it.
It's 7%. So, but yeah, which was really cool and very surprising. I thought that I actually took these bottles to the dumpster at one point.
No.
And then I was like, too soon. Drove the thing right back into the warehouse and put it back into its spot. And thankfully I did, because it turned out really, really good.
But it's also
really
not heavily carbonated.
No, it's just carbonated enough. I think honestly,
Like it almost has a flat mouthfeel.
almost. But if I think if it had more carbonation to it, it would be too sharp.
I agree. No, I think it's perfect, but
Yeah.
it's perfect in that it's almost like a flat mouthfeel.
So
It's kind of salty, like in a good way.
yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I think that it's from the barrel itself somehow. So, but yeah, I was excited to bring this. We released.
Thanks
this
for bringing
about,
that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
That is very
a week
cool.
ago. So yeah, and man, that label
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
cool
that's
one.
beautiful.
is super cool.
Your third and final question. Are you ready for it?
Yeah. Okay. So just to get to know you and get to really just ask from sheer rawness of not being a friend and first getting to know you, I want to know what drew you into this industry, and not necessarily. I'm not asking your story. I'm asking like, why is this your passion, and what things were put into place within your life so that this was something that was important to you, and why you wanted to put this into Tulsa?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I bring whales sometimes.
Every once in a while, you do. That was one of them.
Yeah, I don't. Man, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. You know, one of the things that I've always cared about is community, for sure, and just like, you know, reading books about like the history of beverages. You know, there's a really cool book called Around the World in 5 Beverages that kind of talks about the history of, you know, it starts with, you know, beer, it goes to tea, even ends on like water and wine and coffee and everything are in there.
Coca-Cola, I think. Is it?
Coca-Cola, yeah. Have you read it? You know what I'm talking
I
about?
have read it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
I need
really
to read
interesting.
that.
It's
That
a
sounds like
really
something I would
interesting.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Number one beverage drunk in the world. You know?
Well, it has to be Coca-Cola.
Nope.
No? Tea? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tea.
And just like how that affected, you know, the history of the world, politics, nations, you know, that
Wars.
The Boston Tea Party.
exactly
Yeah.
that affected me a lot, and you know, I wanted to do that here. You know, I obviously opened up a business doing what I love because I wanted to make money. That's what everybody does, right?
Sure.
But I also just wanted to build an institution, right? I wanted to build a thing that would that would live on in perpetuity, right? Like I could die. In fact, I always joke, Chip and I both joke that whenever we die, we're gonna have a wake. I'm gonna be on the bar top, and then I'll get
horrible mental picture.
I'll get cremated and be on an urn in the back, and I have to go with the bar, whatever sale that is.
There you go.
Because everybody walks in and says, "Where's Noah?"
He's behind the bar.
He's right here. So like, yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for me. You know, what drew me into the industry was just like the love of this, the love of what we're doing right now, right? The camaraderie, you know, the social lubrication. It's amazing being behind a bar in witnessing the sort of like microcosm of life's happening in front of you. You know, you've got people getting engaged to each other, people breaking up, you know, they come in for happy hour, they're closing on their house. Like you see the good and bad in everything. You have a regular that comes in every day like clockwork, and then one day they're not there, and then one of their friends shows up and you're, where's Dave? And like, oh, he died, you didn't hear, blah blah blah. Like those are that sort of thing that happens. You know, I hate to liken it to Cheers, but like, I mean, those are that's one of the biggest things that drew me into this. And then just like, you know, with wine, just tasting industry. You know, everybody knows me as a cocktail guy, but like wine is to me like the most sophisticated beverage. In no offense to you or to your bourbon or anything like that, but like it's just like that wine can draw you in more than, to me, any other any other beverage. I mean, I've got a buddy that makes fun of me all the time because I'm like cocktails and spirits sort of happen to you, and beer is fantastic and can be just like this exalting thing as well. But then you kind of have to have a little bit of context when it comes to wine.
Or a lot of context.
A lot of context
on the wine.
But I think that's everything, right? Like the more you know about the thing that you're into, the more enjoyable it is. And I don't care if it's art or sports or beer or bourbon. Like if you have the context of the processes and how it's made and what pairs with it, it completely changes it. And, you know, having moments, you know, that they talk about the aha moment, right? Where you have a pairing with food and wine that just completely just changes everything. And you would not get that flavor out of either one of those products if it wasn't for the fact that they were together. Like I'm constantly chasing that, right? It's like heroin, I guess, for me, because like I want that high of just like having that moment of tasting those two things together and being something completely different and making both of them better than they could ever be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I was transfixed by that answer.
I thought it was a little rambly, but it's okay.
And I love that. And to speak to your
start to open that as he's talking.
Gotcha.
Speaking of wine,
speak to that answer. I don't think that you're necessarily wrong. I think that you know, wine has you've got to kind of break out of your shell and get into the mood of wine.
I feel like it's a more cerebral.
It is a more cerebral drink.
Yeah.
And that, you know, people, when they say that to me, when they're in the wine industry or a sommelier, or they almost apologize for that to me because they know that I'm in the beer industry.
I love that noise.
And I'm always like, well, that doesn't offend me at all because every single beverage has its moment. You know, you have whiskey for really serious talks. You have wine for dinner and celebration. You've got beer for your lunch and your working hours, and because that's really what beer is. It's community based and around food a lot.
Yeah.
Wine also at the same time, but it's also like something, you know, very rarely, I would say, less than 2% of beer is, oh, well, Dryad Dreams was aged in tequila barrels for 6 months
Yeah.
over the petals of the dryad within the forest. You get my picture.
Yeah.
You get that with wine because wine tells more of a story because it has terroir to it, and it comes from a specific region where, our beer, which definitely has a story to it, but my malt comes from Idaho. It comes from Europe, and that's its own story in and of itself, but it's a construct of an artist at the brewery bringing those things to life, where grapes and wine labels are coming from a specific place.
Totally.
And that's kind of the romance of why wine, I think, captivates people's brains in that way. Because wine tells one story and one story alone. You can't change it. Beer, you can take the same barley and turn it into 90 different beers.
Yeah.
So
That was
I think that's why wine has, this elevated ideology of how people define of what it is.
And that was a professional transition to tell us the story of this wine, because there's a unique story behind this.
Yeah, so this is Tiro Biondi. It's the wine is Cisterna Fuori. And just real quick before we go into this, I start doing this.
Cheers, by the way.
Number for you is that, like what you were saying about presenting the wine and that kind of stuff. To me, that only makes sense if the people want that context, right?
Right.
There's so much in my side of the industry that has become so stodgy and stuffy and off-putting, right? And this is so good on its own. It's viscerally good to where you don't need all that context to enjoy it. But if somebody that's just not the way that I present wine. If I'm ever working the floor at Lowood, I'm just like, they ask me what I would recommend. I ask them what they want, and then I bring them a bottle of wine, and then I kind of gauge if they want that context, and then we can start nerding out on it. But I'm not going to do
leading with that.
I'm not the ting 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 like everybody. Excuse me, everybody, shut up and listen to me talk about this wine right now.
And I apologize if I wasn't saying that. That's
I know
exactly how every single bottle of wine is supposed to be drank, because that's really not.
Sure,
90% of wine
Such a
isn't
good glass, though.
drank that way.
Okay, so anyway, Cisterna Fiore. So this wine, the grape is Nerello Mascalese. It comes from Mount Etna in Sicily, volcanic soils. It's natural winemaking process. It's just this to me is one of those wines that when you smell it, like it really is like it kind of takes you to a place, even if you've never been there. And that even though I was just dogging this, like that it comes from volcanic soils in a mountain. It's got that alpine. It's got that you can almost picture the volcanic soils that you're smelling. Nerello Mascalese is one of those little darling grapes in my world that I live in. Kind of Pinot Noirish, a little bit of Gamay, but they can have a lot of power. I think this drinks like a really good Burgundy. Yeah. And in fact, I think one of the cooler stories about this wine is the guy that makes Domaine Romanée-Conti. I'm not expecting that anybody knows what this is, but
I've done research on this after I drank it.
Have you?
Yeah,
okay,
I actually did.
So Domaine Romanée-Conti is like one of the most expensive Burgundies that you can buy. Well, the owner of that wine, who makes that wine, is so obsessed with this wine that he trades him bottle for bottle. So we're talking about his wine sells for straight out of the vineyard, $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the production level, and this one retails for $35-$40. Like bottle for bottle, he'll trade them outright. So I think that speaks a lot to the quality of this wine, and it just backs up an opinion that I have about it.
Right.
But yeah.
And for those that are, scholars and books, that mountain that you referenced, it's the mountain that Cyclops was supposedly living in a cave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From, it's from like Homer's Odyssey.
Right.
So what they would do, so back when the Carthaginians would bring, like they were warring with each other, the Carthaginians would bring their war elephants over that they rode. And what happened is, this is the lore of what it is, right? So they would bring their elephants over. Well, the elephants got left there. They died. And when they would find their skulls in the caves, there would just be this big hole where the trunk and the mouth was. So they thought it was just this big, massive race of humans with one eye that lived on that mountain.
That makes
And it was
sense.
actually elephant skulls. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
And so
That's
that's
cool.
That's
That's
like
cool.
the theory
Yeah.
of it. So
That's awesome.
no.
cool.
Yeah, this is before I ask my last question and we let you get out of here because we've held you for a while. What I was saying about like Psalms and Cicerones, and I drink a lot of alcohol, right? Like I
So do
smell
I.
a lot of wine, I drink a lot of wine, I smell a lot of beer and drink a lot of beer and do the same for bourbon. 9 times out of 10, even still this day for me, I must not have a sophisticated palate because wine tastes like wine. Like I can't, for the life of me, like you're able to pull out notes in your nose and on your palate that I don't know if I just don't recognize what that is on my palate. Like I can tell the difference between kinds of wine.
Sure.
But to say like, oh, this one's more stone fruit and more this and that, I'm like, no, it just smells fruitier. Like I don't smell stone fruit, right? Like
Sure.
and so it blows my mind that there's people like both of you in this world that can pick out such nuanced things. And so it's a tip of the cap in a way. And it's also, how the fuck do you do that? Question. Like I don't, man, it's incredible.
So
Go
I'm
for
going to
Yeah,
answer the
yeah.
first part of that question for listeners, because I love telling people naturally have a good palate. People naturally have a good nose. It's not that you can't taste that or can't smell it. It's that you've got to stop. And I know that you do this because you're a foodie.
Sure.
You love beer, you love wine, you love
Absolutely.
bourbon and everything else.
And mine might be more sophisticated than others, but
Of
it's not
course.
to your level. It's not to your,
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's just because, Noah and I are doing it every single day.
And it's probably training in a way too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Like,
and that goes to it.
yeah.
And that's every single time that I have like a beer dinner with people, I encourage them to, when they go out to eat, going out to eat used to be only for celebrations. It used to only be for certain occasions and this, that, and the other. Now we do it more often, which is cool because people can actually articulate what's going on in food now a little bit more appropriately and build a memory for what is going
Exactly.
on within the liquid. And it's really just about calling out what you taste within this wine, because there's not necessarily any incorrect answer.
True.
No,
True.
it's all subjective.
It's very cerebral, all about memory. And so, but
Make a
Noah
note of
Noah
that
and
answer
I-
because I'm going to ask you something.
Okay.
Noah and I could have 2 different answers of what we taste within this wine. And we both have, let's say, I call it mineral and he calls it pepper.
Sure.
Good, two very similar things, but we've drank wine enough together, let's say 10 bottles later, we can say, when I call it mineral, he can say, I can expect pepper.
Exactly.
So there's
sense.
themes,
Yeah.
That's a subjective part, right?
Right.
and that's the subjective part.
Yeah.
So
So I encourage everyone,
yeah.
when you're drinking
Find a
something-
drinking buddy.
Yeah, it's
Find a psalm.
It's fun to call what you're tasting and then find the equilibrium within everybody in your circle, because you're not wrong.
Nobody, yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason I noted what you said about it's all subjective and that you're not wrong is that when you're taking the test to become a somm, you can be wrong.
Sure, but that's because you made the wrong call. Like,
Okay. So it's not
And-
tasting
and-
notes versus
but also like, so if you are taking those tests, right? I mean, they've got, in a sense, it's just a more systemized way of what he's talking about, right? They're teaching you and telling you that, you know, in a sense, this is what this flavor is. And there is some science backing it up, right? They're like, there's rotundin and pyrazine, and like everybody tastes green pepper when they taste pyrazine. It could be jalapeno, it could be bell pepper, but like that's what it is. So there's some science backing that up.
Sure.
But again, like as far as like their teaching way, the way that they systemize it is, it's easy to pull those things out because they tell you, you're going to taste this, you know what I mean? You're going to do this. Yeah. So
I get that.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
that's kind of,
It just blows my mind.
it is
So my-
subjective, but there is science
Right,
that backs
right,
up
right,
that
right.
objectively you're going to taste this if you're able to perceive those flavors, right? I mean, some people just don't really taste well.
And
And
that's
they
very
won't,
true.
and they have less taste buds. Some people have more taste buds. You know, that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, that's true.
The whole like tongue mapping thing is that's not a real thing. That's like bunk science. Like there is definitely things that you taste on the palate, on the tongue, like the sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Right? We all kind of know that. But like most of the flavors are coming from your nasal cavity, and it's the combination of those two things that create what a strawberry tastes like. And you know, the whole mapping thing, like everybody's perception of sweet could be at the front of the tongue or the back of the tongue. Like they haven't yet still done enough research to prove that is actually the way that it is.
It's fascinating.
And to go beyond, or not beyond, but to kind of back you up in what you're saying about and kind of define. So when I can only talk to beer because that's what I'm a professional at. I'm not a professional at wine, and I know that this is exactly what happens within the wine industry. To kind of go further in your definition of that kind of green pepper, is that what you were calling it? I don't know what that scientific word is.
Pyrazine.
Thank you. In the beer, in the beer world, we have off flavors that we predefine and have pre-notions of what that off flavor tastes like. So let's say DMS, which is dimethyl sulfate, which is a byproduct of malt, and then we boil it off through the boiling process. But if you don't boil it off strong enough, then traditionally it can come off as cooked corn in your beer. So, but I taste cooked corn when I taste it. My wife tastes squash. So
Interesting. Yeah.
when she tastes squash, she knows I'm tasting DMS. When I'm tasting cooked corn, I know I'm tasting DMS. So when you're taking a Cicerone test, you have your own definition of what that off flavor is. And so when she's tasting squash or cooked squash, she's like, I taste DMS. And that's how you get to the same conclusion
Totally,
of
yeah.
the same definition.
That's the subjective part
Right.
with the science back.
And that's how you would taste or take a test
Yep.
for
That makes sense.
Cicerone
That makes sense.
or
Exactly.
That makes sense.
whatever.
And I think just more to your point too, a lot of what I do as far as like a wine goes, and if I'm trying to identify it on a blind, is like I look at the structure. Right, the structure will tell you a lot of what that grape varietal is. Like if it's high acid, if it's broad on the palate, if that makes sense. It just kind of like is weighty on the palate. If it's thin, also alcohol content
If you
tells
need
a
it-
lot.
if you need
Yes,
a refill,
let me refill you a little bit more.
Might as well.
So like structure is a huge thing, and structure to me is what I look for more whenever I'm pairing food with wine, because the way that it interacts with your mouth and the fats and the oils and the acids that you're putting in your mouth from the food is more important than the flavor combinations, right? So like I could smell dark cherry in this, but I would never pair this with like a dark cherry dessert, like a Black Forest Sunday from Brahms or something. Like, no way, that's going to be fucking terrible.
Oklahoma shout out, Brahms right there.
It's going to be terrible because the tannin and the structure of this wine will totally clash with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so what you want with this is just like a protein with some nice soft fats to it, maybe like a dry aged steak or duck breast or something.
I was going to say duck.
And it's going to be phenomenal.
Now I'm hungry.
A butterfly backstrap of some deer.
Some venison.
Bacon.
That does sound
that'd
good.
be
Venison.
Exactly, and you've got all that. So this is where the flavor profile can come in. Is like this is super earthy, and like deer and venison can be have that really grassy, earthy note to it.
I've got some butterfly backstrap. Let's cook some up some.
Do
with,
it.
with this. Sometime.
Do it.
I'll bring it over.
Okay,
Nice. All right,
Do
last
it.
question. I'll let you get out of here.
Okay,
What are you excited about? Where do you see things headed in your world, and what is piquing your interest at the moment?
is this just like a general question of anything?
I mean, a general question, but also about the industry and about directions you might be able to go. And
Man, I'm just excited that it's fucking coming back.
Yeah.
I'm excited that I've got a lot of new talent underneath me that is wanting to learn and love being at my establishments. That's the most exciting to me. And I'm excited to see what they do and what they can bring, because, my job is just to give them what they need to become who they are at my establishment.
Yep.
Do your job, do the base of your job. I'll educate you. I'll taste you on these products, but I want to see what you come up with. I want to see what you do.
I love that leash that you give them too.
That's what it's about. I wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't have been given, that wide berth that all of the other owners and managers gave me. I was a nerd about all of this stuff, and they let me do my thing because they knew that I could sell it. And so, I'm excited about the future of Tulsa and what's to come from the new young raw talent that's coming out of it. Because they're absorbing everything. Like I've got guys that are reading all the books that I read and then all of the new books as well. And some of the stuff with their fresh mind and new eyes on it is just incredible stuff that I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
So
what about this Torero reboot?
Oh man.
You can break news here. Elliot said he was thinking about running for mayor on this podcast. So you can break news here.
I'm still waiting.
Is this
on that.
happening?
Elliot, you should run for
Absolutely.
mayor.
We told him that. Yeah.
And he almost didn't disagree.
Yeah. He almost didn't. Yeah. But is Torero happening? Like, is that your next idea?
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm slowing down the Expanse until things kind of are standing on their own two legs.
Fair.
Again.
Yeah. Fair.
But I do have a lot of ideas and things that I want to bring to this town in the future. I need everything to be full blown back, and then we can do it.
I have a strange answer to your question.
Which one?
The question that you just
What
asked.
excites you?
What excites
Yeah.
and kind of going off of what you're saying. I was answering basically this question to someone yesterday.
How dare they steal my question?
Well, no, I think I love this question. You've asked it a few different times, and I walked away from me having a conversation, and I was thinking about you on the podcast and this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, I can't say where I was because it's for a Christmas present.
Oh, you definitely
for my wife.
can't say that. Good catch.
I was about to give away something.
He was at Rustic Cuff. And they were talking
I was at the gas station. No. And they were asking me, how's your industry? How are things going after the pandemic and this, that, and the other? And
Don't you hate that question?
Do what?
Don't you hate that question?
Oh,
sometimes?
I hate that. Yeah, I do. It just comes around. But, what excites me and what you've hit on is there are a lot of people that actually moved here to Tulsa.
Yeah, remote Tulsa is amazing.
That's been huge.
Because of the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And two of my bartenders are transplants.
Exactly.
And they are some of the, best and smartest people that I've hired because they are transplants.
Exactly.
And I think that that's a really cool opportunity for Tulsa. And to go back to my own question and maybe answer it a little bit, I think that that might be a way that we're going to spread our wings because we're going to have an avenue of these people coming in that we get to give leashes to, and they're going to go and tell our story better than we tell our own story because when we were talking to Nick, we're just not good at bragging
Oklahoma
about
in
ourselves.
general.
Yeah, I don't want to. I hate talking. I was very nervous about coming onto the show because I knew you're going to ask me about myself. I hate talking about myself.
Me too.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've got some transplants working for me, like highly experienced people, running hotel and restaurant management in LA and New York. And so I do give them a big leash because I want to see what they can do. They've experienced the things that I've always wanted to experience, right? And that I've tried to kind of help generate and build here, somewhat on my own. But they get it more than I do. And so I'm excited to see what happens with them sort of leading the charge as well. So that's a great answer.
I'm glad you came on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And
thanks for sharing this wine.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a wonderful wine.
It's so good.
This is wonderful.
I mean, it was the best glass of wine I've had in the city.
It's
okay. Subjectively, what do you taste?
It's 1 second.
Oh, is that for me?
I'm looking at you.
Oh, okay. You were looking at me.
No, come on.
Oh,
I'm putting you on the spot.
I do taste the earthiness and the not charcoal, but the volcanic, a different. I can tell that the grapes were grown in a different soil than the wine I'm used to drinking from Flanagan out in California or whatever.
Yeah,
it definitely has that more mineral, both on the nose and on the palate. So that's one, and then. I don't know what kind of fruit I get, but and this is where maybe I'm not a great.
How about this? Answer this question.
Yeah.
Is it red fruit? Is it black fruit? Is it green fruit? Is it purple fruit?
So that to me, on my palate, it's right on the line between a red fruit and a green fruit.
Perfect. You got it.
Yeah.
That's all you got to say.
Yeah.
That whenever you're talking about it, just make it general.
Yep.
This one smells like potpourri.
Gotcha.
Dried fruit, whatever you want to say.
I'm ready for my psalm test. Let's
there
go.
You go. Let's go.
And that's exactly what I tell people with beer is when they're just learning, I tell them to tell me the color that they taste.
Exactly.
What kind of color are you tasting within this beer?
Interesting.
Synesthesia.
Are you tasting a honey golden color? Are you tasting a green color, a red color? What? And that was spot on.
Yeah, that was spot on.
Yeah.
Good job. And I know we gave a lot of love to the Chi-Chi, and as we say goodbye, I have to give love to the Wake Up Call because I do think that is the single best cocktail in the state of Oklahoma.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to meet you.
Yeah,
it was
great to meet you too.
Coming on to this and not being too nervous to answer questions.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
You were great.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were great. Tell Laura, thanks for letting us borrow you for a couple hours.
Will do. Totally.
All right. Cheers, man. We'll be right back after the break.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And that is Noah Bush, and this is the delicious Cyclops Elephant Skull wine. And it's so good.
It was fun to learn about where this was coming from and his point of perspective of, really how to taste stuff, and also his background in this community, and what he's bringing to it is really unique.
It really is. If you haven't been to Hodges and had the wake up call, go. If you haven't been to Saturn Room and had the Chi-Chi, go. If you haven't been to Lowood since...
If you haven't had the Chi-Chi, are you Tulsan?
Probably not. And I can't remember when Lowood brought in their new chef from Washington, D.C. and Nashville. So he was in Nashville, but he was running a restaurant group that also had restaurants in D.C. It's
phenomenal.
Oh, my God. It's a different level of cooking. So if you haven't been there lately, go out back, sit there, drink some of this wine, play some bocce ball. Tell TC we sent you, and he won't give you any discount, but he'll just say great. But yeah, it's a blast, and that was a fun conversation. That was a lot of fun.
That was really cool.
Yeah. So we will have episode 9 at some point before Christmas. That's our goal.
That's our goal.
Is to get that out. Then we'll take a little Christmas break, and then the aforementioned tease of episode 10 will be early to mid January, and it'll be fun.
It should be really fun.
Yeah. Well, cheers, man. We got some more wine.
Let's do that. It'll be a lot of eating, drinking, and
merriment.
I'm
gonna call that.
Yeah, in a place that is
not in here.
Not here.
Ooh. We got to stop. We're saying too much.
I know. Sorry.
All right. We'll see you on the next episode of Tasting Room.
Thank you for listening.
Cheers.